Hello friends, bienvenidos. My name is Jen, aka Jen Colo on social media, your local witchy friend and intuitive guide through the occult. As always, my lovely husband and co-host is David, aka Premier Pulls on social media.
Hi everyone. On today's episode, Jen explains Edgar Allan Poe.
Welcome to the show. Grab a chair, make yourself at home. Jen's got stories to share, you'll never feel alone.
I've been seeing a lot of Edgar Allan Poe speakeasies recently on social media.
Yeah, there's ads on Instagram. I had seen them in the past, but I haven't seen them in a while. But, you know, when you talk about Edgar Allan Poe, like, for sure, one of the most prolific figures as far as, like, literature and kind of that dark occultness, yeah, kind of goes hand in hand. That was, for sure, one of the first people I thought of when we decided to do the Spotlight series, and a good kind of contrast to our last Spotlight series with Walter Mercado, because he was like colorful, upbeat and bubbly, and then we got Edgar Allan Poe, who I actually don't know too much about, just kind of what the main media portrays him as, but kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Because we're talking like occult, we're talking like, you know, supernatural, both with Walter Mercado with his astrology, and then with Edgar Allan Poe, he's just kind of the poster boy for like that gothic movement. So I'm really excited to hear all about him and what he was about, and yeah, just learn about this author, right? I think that's what he's best known for.
Yeah, author and poet. So in high school, we had to read a few of his works. Specifically, the one that I remember reading is A Telltale Heart. What about you? Did you have to read any of his works in high school?
I don't remember having to read any of his books, and I don't think I've ever read any of his books or poems. The only one is The Crow, but I don't know if that's a book or a poem, but I know that's his, right?
The Raven. Yeah, so art imitates life. So his life was definitely as dark as his work. So I'm excited to dive into it.
He was his like own source material?
Kind of, yeah. So he's very like doom and gloom, and his life was also very mysterious and tragic as well. So he was born January 19th, 1809 in Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's a while back ago.
A while
I don't know
back.
why I was under the impression he was more like early 1900s to like late 1800s, but he didn't even live in the 1900s, right?
No, he did not. Yeah. So when he was 3, he was left with his godfather, John Allan, in Richmond, Virginia, because his mom died of consumption, which is what they called tuberculosis back then. And then his dad was just like, "You're on your own, kid. I'm gonna do me." So yeah, he left him with his godfather, who was pretty wealthy because he was a tobacco merchant, but he didn't really care for him. He just kind of took him in as a favor.
When did his mom die again? What year?
When he was around 3 years old.
3 years old.
So
okay.
Probably 1812.
Okay, so he was a baby essentially.
Yeah, he was 3 years old.
He was a toddler. Okay. So you said his dad kind of just left them to be, or
with his godfather.
Oh, with his godfather. Okay.
Yeah, in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay, got it. So born in Massachusetts, but moved to Richmond at 3. So he didn't really grow up in Boston.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, he grew up in the South. He was a Southern boy. So he was a gifted athlete, which a lot of people wouldn't think, because like his appearance, like how he's portrayed, is very like pale and sickly and goth. But when he was a kid, he was a really, really good athlete.
I'm guessing he played baseball?
He did. They said that he did a lot of like swimming and running and things like that, but he was just a very athletic boy. But from a young age, he had a love, like a deep, deep love and appreciation for women. And throughout his life, he calls them like angels of mercy. So he always gravitated towards like feminine female figures. And this might be because of the loss of his mother from a young age, that he was maybe trying to like fill that hole that he had.
Now, was he like a white knight as we would know it in today's term, where it was like that idea of like, okay, I'm like obsessed with women and I'm gonna like protect them, but it's kind of that alter, there's like an alter reason to do it, or was he like genuinely like just fascinated by the female gender?
I think it started off as just like genuinely fascinated and appreciative, but towards the end of his life, he ended up having like multiple, or attempting to have like multiple women at the same time.
Oh, interesting. And was he effeminate?
Maybe a little bit, because he was more of a poet and a dainty sort of, instead of like.
And in that time, we were going through the Industrial Revolution in the U.S., right? So
he wasn't working with his hands. Yeah.
Okay. Which. Yeah, pretty rare for the time. And well, you did say that he did come from some wealth, right? He wasn't like complete poverty, but it also doesn't sound like he was like extremely rich or came from a rich family, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe just gave him enough to afford that, like, I don't have to work with my hands, and let him explore like his artistic passion.
Yeah.
But to do something like that in the 1800s when he was born and kind of growing up in the East Coast, where there was like that boom of the Industrial Revolutions, we're starting to get factories, we're starting to get mass production. It's kind of an interesting time to go through that, right?
Yeah, well, he went to grammar school, which is like elementary school in Scotland, and then after that, like his later years, like high school in London. And then he came back to Virginia to go to the University of Virginia.
Oh, okay. So he was well educated, well traveled, well versed. Yeah. Still kind of an interesting character to take at the time, because now I think that's not as like uncommon, right? You can be born into maybe poverty or like middle class, and like, you can still explore, you can still see what your options are, but back in the day, at that time, it was like the factories or the farm, like the two F's, and no other choice. So, yeah, kind of interesting.
Yeah, so he attended University of Virginia, which is prestigious now. Back then was not prestigious, because like all of the like Ivy Leagues, like you think of like Oxford. And things like that.
Well, Oxford's in the UK.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So but they were built like way earlier. So, you're thinking of more like reputable schools. University of Virginia was like really new at the time, and it was sort of seen like a rough school. Like, oh, it's like that,
like a state school?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it is a state school. And his godfather only gave him at that point, because he was an adult, or like, a brand new adult at 18, just enough money to get to the University of Virginia and pay for some tuition, but then nothing for him to actually like live off of.
Okay.
So
to be fair, college back then wasn't what it is today, though, right? So even if it was like difficult, I'm sure he could afford it. And also the fact that he had already been so studious and done all this, like, I'm sure he had kind of figured out at that point, like, well, I'm going to work more with my mind as opposed to my hands.
Yeah, and he didn't have like food to eat or really like ways to stay warm. Some accounts say that he even had to like burn some of his clothes to like stay warm. But then other accounts give his godfather the benefit of the doubt, where it's like he did give him money, but he was irresponsible with it. And something that started as a young adult in his college years that went through like the rest of his life is that he had a gambling problem.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that about him. So he wasn't the starving artist. He was the artist with issues.
Yeah, I mean, starving artist with issues, I guess. But
I wonder what gambling was back in the day. I'm sure it was more like speakeasy vibes, kind of coming back to that. Like now, there's all these Edgar Allan Poe speakeasies. But I wonder what he would have gambled on.
Yeah, that I don't know. But he did get into very heavy gambling debt, which was interesting because back then there was debtor's prison.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So if you didn't pay your shit, like, you went to jail.
Yeah, and nowadays we don't have debtor's prison like in the same way. We do have it for like child support. If people don't pay child support, they could go to jail, but that's after like wage garnishing and going to court and like all of these things.
Yeah, it's like a last resort.
It's a very much a last resort, versus back then it was like the first resort. Like it was a very, very real possibility. So
why do you think we have that like stereotype now of like the Edgar Allan Poe speakeasies? Because speakeasies weren't famous until the 1920s because of Prohibition. So we're talking over like 100 years. So it'd be like if somehow somebody from this era, let's say Britney Spears, was like associated with like the Flappers, right? If you think about it,
Yeah,
it could be kind of a weird mesh.
It's because speakeasies were usually like sort of dark and underground, and that was his aesthetic. So I think it's just two aesthetics that mesh
But
well
it's still
together.
kind of a stretch. Kind of going back to the Britney Spears, like Britney Spears as an artist, and the Flappers had like a style, and and they'd be like, oh, like, I don't know, right?
They're not doing it for historical accuracy.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's
vibes.
just like it's a very common trope, and I don't know why those two got meshed together.
It's just like, this is a dark vibe and this is a dark vibe. Let's combine them. Yeah, I don't really know what went through the creator's head, but you're right, and I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. It's kind of like those parents who are like, all Pokemon or Pikachu, like.
Yeah, all like video games are Nintendos. Yeah, exactly. After 8 months, he ended up dropping out because his debt got so bad that he was like, I'm going to jail. Like, for sure. And he didn't want to do that, so he ran away and he joined the army under a false name.
Really? He had a pseudonym for the army?
Yeah. Edgar Allan Poe.
Okay.
Yeah. So he joined under a fake name. He served for 2 years, and then he got admitted into West Point, which is another university. But
it's a military university. Okay. Wait, let me go back. So he was born in what?
1809.
1809.
So we're probably around
1820?
1830.
1830. What wars were going on in the 1830s? I know we weren't overseas. Was it like the Western Wars?
I want to say, for some reason, this is coming to mind from back in the day. There was like a... Oh, no, it's not. I was going to say...
the Spanish-American War and the Civil War. The War of 1812, I'm looking that up. So the War of 1812 was against Great Britain, but he wouldn't have been a part of that. The Mexican-American War is where he would have been deployed to.
Oh, maybe.
We're looking like 1846 to 1848.
Maybe.
But that doesn't make sense either, right? Because he was born in 1808.
But even during times of peace, you need a military.
Okay, so he didn't go to war.
No.
Okay.
He enlisted in the military.
Got it. Okay, got it. I thought he went to war. Okay.
No.
Okay, the reason I ask because there has been like prolific artists that come out of like World War One. I can't think of his name right now, but there's like a really famous artist who came out of World War One, and I thought that's kind of where the story was going. But okay, so there wasn't an active war when he was in the military.
Well, very similarly, My Chemical Romance, also a dark aesthetic, was formed after like 2000, after 9/11. So yeah, sometimes like these traumatic things sort of can spark artistic creativity. I see where you're going, but this was not the case.
Okay.
He just wanted to be in the military and run away.
Got it. Okay. And maybe get his debts paid off.
Exactly. So yes, he got admitted to West Point. That was awesome. But then he was dismissed for negligence and disobeying orders.
Okay, so he was a rebel.
Yeah.
And he was honestly like kind of a rebel without a cause, right? Because he was like didn't finish college because of the debt, got into debt. So far it sounds like he stood for nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
After this, he realized that he wanted to be a poet and a writer. So then he started working for literary journals as a critic. Like he would review like new, poems or works that would come out. But what he was known for was for being a very, very harsh critic. Like he had a specific way of roasting people that was just really, really savage. And so that was sort of his initial like claim to fame.
He was like the Simon Cowell of the day.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I like him. I didn't know anything about this, but the more I'm listening, he kind of sounds like a brat. I mean, realistically, he sounds like a brat, and like a brat with angst. But okay, let's get into it a little bit more, because it's not like he had the struggle, right? He was obviously able to travel to like Scotland and across the sea. Then he was able to like, even if the uncle or the godfather didn't pay for like tuition, he paid for him to get there. Some people don't get that. And then like he went to the army and then got kicked out of West Point. And then he's like, how am I getting money? I'm going to get money by shitting on people. He just sounds like a big brat.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, like he did have a lot of traumatic things when he was growing up, like the death of his parents, being abandoned. And there weren't the same like opportunities and social nets that we have today back in the 1800s. But yeah, there were certain things that could be avoided. It's like you didn't have to gamble your way into it. You didn't have to like disobey orders just because, you know. So a little bit of credit, a little bit of fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. But while he was working and doing like this literary criticism, he was also creating poems and short stories. And people would love to hear him recite them. And yeah, we'll get into sort of his influence. So he was the first American writer to write short stories semi-successfully. Like, Americans weren't well known to be like literary minds until he came along, and his success was more post-mortem. So the little success that he did have was better than any other American compared to like the Europeans and the
like
Brits.
Van Gogh, where he wasn't big in his when he was alive.
Very similar.
He's
vibe.
giving me a little bit of Holden Caulfield from oh my gosh, what's the name of that book?
Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye. Yeah. Like East Coast, like doesn't know what he's gonna do. Then he gets into criticizing. Catcher in the Rye was like one of my favorite books for the longest time, but I think can be a little bit of a cliche. Like you go back and you're like, he was just kind of a little whiny brat with angst, and it's honestly giving that vibe for sure. Catcher in the Rye.
Yeah.
But okay, continue.
He invented detective fiction. And heavily influenced like sci-fi and horror. His first like detective fiction were Murders in the Rue Morgue, and so after that, you know, his influence continued and made like Sherlock Holmes and really all horror and sci-fi as we know it.
He was like the precursor to like that Americana style of like detectiveness and murder mysteries.
Yeah, and like if you think about sort of like the effect of it throughout time, like we wouldn't have Scooby-Doo, we wouldn't have Doctor Who, SVU, like anything horror or mystery or thriller like really comes back to him because no one else was doing stuff like this back in the day.
I wonder contextually like why that is, because it is a really gloomy and dark time, right? We don't have the EPA regulating emissions, right? So all these factories that are churning out these crazy volumes of products, you know, are emitting all this smoke, this soot. Most laborers are in those factories inhaling all this crazy toxicity. I don't know if we have electricity at this point, but I can't imagine it's anything that's like as well as we have now. So a lot of it was like candlelight, probably. Definitely didn't have the automobile, so people were getting around in like horse and buggies. And so the time itself was a very like dark, laborious time period too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's interesting that something didn't emerge out of that, like the just the pains of having to go work at the factory every day.
Yeah, well, a lot of people were of faith. Like, a lot of people are Christian at this point.
And so... True. The church. I always forget about the damn church. Meddling its way into everything.
But also, what's more likely to sell? Love and sex appeal.
Yeah.
And that's, like...
That shit goes back...
throughout time, since the beginning of time. Like, that's what people want to read about. Like, yes, I guess, like, Shakespeare had, like, Romeo and Juliet. I guess there was a little bit, maybe not so much, like, murder mystery, but, like, drama with, like, Othello and Julius Caesar and things like that. But it wasn't as, like, gothic. And the unique, like, point of view that Edgar Allan Poe had was that he had narrators that... were either stricken by guilt or sometimes were not making sense. Yeah. So it really made the person reading a part of the experience versus like before it was just telling you what was happening. Okay. So he developed this very unique point of view for people.
I see. I'm looking at like prolific people around his time. We have a lot of people from the 1800s. That century was pretty big, but around his time, Lincoln would have been in power. Which is crazy.
At some point.
So that has a lot of like implications as to what the temperature of the country was going on. And then Harriet Tubman was also around that time.
When was Harriet Tubman around?
1820. Mm-hmm. So like there were big movements happening, right? And the state of like the country was a very divided one.
Kind of, because she was born in the 1820s, and by the time that she actually did what she needed to do, she was maybe like, what, 40, 50?
That's
so
true, yeah.
That would have been 1860s, way past his time.
But Lincoln, I think Lincoln, he was born around the same time that Edgar Allan Poe was born.
Yeah, but he was probably a young adult, like around the same time. I think they were born in the same year. You said 1809?
1809.
Yeah, they were born in the same year.
Yeah, so they would have been doing a lot of the same stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously at that point in time, you know, the South and the North were, something was brewing. So there probably was a lot of angst in there, wasn't there?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So we can credit him for the murder mystery genre.
Yeah, again, so if you're a horror fan, which a lot of people are.
Yes. If you're listening to this podcast, you've probably into or been influenced by some of like the things that he helped create or fund.
Yeah, even if you don't know it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so very interesting person, but he had many trials and tribulations.
Okay.
So his life was just as dark as his works, and honestly, the sad cycles even continued after his death, which I'm very excited to talk about after this break. Have you ever wanted to party like the Roaring 20s? Well, now you can. Abracadabra is hosting Sips and Spirits. Come learn about seance culture in the 20s, which were all the rage. They also shared ghost stories during the Roaring 20s. Come hear about local Merced ghosts. There will be hors d'oeuvres, drinks, of course, and each attendee gets their own spirit photography. So come check it out. I will also be providing tarot readings for my special event rate of $25. If you want to open yourself up in this spooky environment to any messages from the universe, but mention this ad and you get $5 off. Mention or reach out to Abracadabra on Facebook and Instagram to get your ticket today. All right, now back to the show.
So now you're basically going to share his emo phase, what really made Edgar Allan Poe, Edgar Allan Poe. So everything up until this point, he wasn't as prolific, right? He was just kind of a run-of-the-mill, kind of like artsy dude who just traveled, right?
Yeah.
None of this was formative to who we know, except maybe the death of his mother, as well as the abandonment of the father, correct? Yeah. And his mom died so young that even that, I don't know if it was as like traumatic or...
I think it is, because at that point, kids know who their parents are.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Okay.
No, definitely.
All right, well, let us know about his trials and tribulations.
Well, to start off, there's going to be a common thing. He has a lot of vices. Drinking, gambling, and women.
Okay, sounds like a good time.
So in 1836, he was kind of like, I don't really have any family to call my own. So he reconnected with like a long lost aunt and cousin. And, you know, they're
in Virginia or in Boston?
In Virginia.
Okay.
And he got to know his 13-year-old cousin, Virginia Clem, and he was 27 at the time. So they had a 14-year difference.
Okay.
And he fell in love with her and they got married.
That's not creepy.
Yeah, he even got documents forged to say that she was older. So at first I was like, well, maybe it was the times. But if you had the fake documents to say that they're older.
Yeah, I wonder how that looked. Well, not only was it his cousin, I'm guessing it was his first cousin. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And she was a minor, but I don't know how bad that looked back then. Both of those things.
Yeah. I don't know. But
obviously he knew he was doing something he wasn't supposed to.
If back in the day, back in those times, you had to forge documents. Like forging documents now versus then, like I don't know. Oof. Very interesting. People did say that they were a happy couple, always laughing and playing around.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean anything when
know.
She's 13 and he's literally almost double her age. That's crazy.
I'm just saying what the people were saying. But guess what? She also died of consumption, aka tuberculosis.
Oh, how old was she when she died?
She was about 24. Because they were married for 11 years.
So they were together for a while.
Yeah, they were together for 11 years. So his mom died of consumption, aka tuberculosis, and so did his wife.
Okay.
Yeah. And after that, he just kind of lost his way. Like he lost his beloved Virginia, and he just started romancing many women at once. He just like couldn't stand to be alone. He always needed to be with the company of like a female lover of some sort. Yeah. So yeah, he started romancing many women at once, and there were a lot of like recovered letters that he would send to like women he was interested in, and he was using very similar lines in his like letters to the different women. And some historians speculate like he's not like being he wasn't maybe being intentionally like deceitful or cheating with like, oh yeah, they're all gonna love this. Like they're gonna love these bars. Like let me just make copies, one for each girl. Not exactly like that, but they thought that maybe like his despair and his mind were sort of like leaving him to where he just couldn't remember what he was saying to what person, and he just
people are such apologists, right? Like, or they'll make excuses. He was dating a 13-year-old of his cousin, and they're like, well, it worked out. Then he was basically a fuckboy in the 1800s, and like, well, he didn't know. Or it's like those dudes who wake up in the morning and send the good morning text to like all the fucking girls they're trying to like impress.
Yeah, literally
he's
just
not
copy paste.
Like he's not special so far.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know I was not gonna like Edgar Allan Poe. Like so far, horrible person.
People would love to go see him recite poetry and tales, but towards the end of his life, he would be very intoxicated like all the time. So they would just go see this guy just be completely sloshed.
He's like the original fuckboy. I'm surprised like sorority guys don't have like posters of Edgar Allan Poe instead of like the beers and shit.
I know. His shows would be disappointing towards
how old was he when he died?
He was 40.
40, okay. So he actually lived a decent life for the time, right?
I think for that time, 40 was pretty young.
He's still young?
Yeah.
One thing that I'm curious about, I don't know if we're going to get into it or if you know the answer, but did he ever like allude to who his muse was? Was it his Victoria, or was he just like, that was his story? Like, oh, you're my muse. Like all the girls he was like courting essentially.
Yeah, so he did make different works for different people, which we will talk about, but the story of Annabel Lee was about his first wife, Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. What was really sad about tuberculosis is that people would sort of have a slower death, and once they started coughing up blood, like you knew that was it.
Yeah.
So I think he actually wrote Annabel Lee as Virginia was dying. He knew this was coming.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And the Mask of the Red Death was like for all of the people that died of tuberculosis because it was so red. They were spitting up all this blood. So he had a lot of different like inspirations for writing. But yeah, definitely Annabel Lee was attributed to his first wife.
You know who else was a fuckboy? Was Ben Franklin.
Really?
Yeah. He had like syphilis, and he was going around just fucking, and like, I don't know. It's crazy. Like all these prolific figures who people look up to, and it's just like, yeah, nobody's perfect, obviously, but it's just so interesting how they can do all these things and be revered, and it's just like you said, even in the time, like people are like, wait, you're kind of weird, dude. Like you're doing shit you're probably not supposed to. But then there's people who make excuses for him. But I wonder if that was like post-mortem, the excuses. I wonder if like in the time, what people thought of him.
Oh yeah, no. In the times, people did not like it.
Yeah, and even right now, I don't really like it.
I don't know how he was able to pull this off, but he was also able to pull off a meeting with President Tyler to ask for a job of some sort, and he showed up drunk, and his President Tyler's son like intercepted and said like, come back when you're sober, and he did, and then I don't remember what the outcome of that was, but I was like, why is this guy such a like, all of his fame and stuff and appreciation comes post-mortem, but during the time, like, why did he not have his shit together? And it was because of a lack of copyright laws and contract laws. So I was looking towards the logical, like there has to be an explanation for why like he couldn't monetize his work, why he was always broke, minus the gambling, like that doesn't help, and that's
the
a personal
alcoholism,
yeah,
and the being a fuckboy,
Yeah.
and sleeping with multiple women. Like, beyond all that, why didn't he have his life together?
Yes, beyond all that, I was just very curious. So I did this deep dive. And yeah, a lack of copyright laws, international copyright laws, and contract laws were one of the bigger reasons. So American publishers often chose to sell unauthorized copies of works by British authors because, again, they had more like literary power than pay for new work written by Americans.
Yeah. Because Americans didn't have an established name. They couldn't establish themselves as copyrights.
No publishing house would take them on. And sort of like we talked about with Walter Mercado, there were a lot of gatekeepers.
Yeah.
So it's not like now on the internet where you could like publish a blog and then like it speaks for itself in terms of analytics. Like you needed access to a publishing house and no one wanted to take Americans because they were too expensive.
That makes sense. It's literally the same. Everything is so cyclical, right? We don't hire American, and I'm not trying to get on a soapbox or go any type of way, but like one of the reasons companies don't hire American workers, it's because it's so expensive. The labor is so expensive that it's easier to export that labor.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Same shit was going on in the pre-Civil War, essentially.
Yep. And then publishers, if they did contract with Americans, often refused to pay their writers or paid them way later. So contracts were often violated and there was no way to enforce them.
I see.
And very, very sad. The Raven, so prolific. Guess how much he made off of that? $14 in his life.
Damn.
And $14 back then is not going to be more than a few thousand, but definitely way less than $10,000.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And there were little kids that would like quote the Raven to him and like sort of like fly around him and like mess with him. And he would turn around and be like, nevermore. And then they would like run around and scream. So like his work was decently like well known while he was alive, but he only made $14 from that. Like that's wild.
Well, here's another thing that I find really, really interesting. We're talking early to semi-mid 1800s, right? People who are literate is not that high. At this time, we're not talking like basically everybody can read. Books are easily accessible, right? I'm pretty sure we do have the printing press, but I know it's a very rudimentary source. It was more like flyers and like pamphlets. It wasn't full-bound books at that time. I could be wrong.
But he also didn't write like full novels. They were short stories and poems.
Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is like being able to enjoy literary works was definitely a privilege. It's kind of like when TVs came out, not everybody had a TV. And then when like the color TV came out, like it's not like everybody went and bought a color TV. Everybody was like, you know, with their black and white TVs, and then only like the richest people could afford, or the people who are like better off could afford color TVs. So for the time being, it's crazy that there's like all these copyright issues and like literature and art is still so important because A, people can't read at the time, and B, like reading is a luxury, right? So I'm curious kind of how that plays into his prolificness. Even like you were just mentioning, like at the time he was already starting to get recognition.
Well, I guess it's like if someone looked back and was like, why was Hermes so, like, why did they make so much money if it was a luxury? It's like, there are still people with money.
That's
like,
true.
just because you make this niche thing that's not for, like, the masses doesn't mean, like, that you deserve to get ripped off. Like,
No, and I'm not saying that, but like the fact that like even like little kids knew about him, you know?
Oh, it's because he did his public like speakings. Like,
oh, okay, so that was the entertainment.
Yeah.
He would read his shit. I forgot about that. Okay, that makes more sense.
But yeah, his death is a mystery. He died very suddenly, October 7th, 1849, at 40 years old. He was found in Baltimore under great distress, either inside or just outside of Gunner's Hall Tavern, so at a bar. Surprise, surprise. He was wearing clothing that obviously wasn't his. It was like too small, and it seemed like someone dressed him and like dumped him. He seemed intoxicated, in and out of consciousness. He seemed to be hallucinating, talking to ghosts, sweating, really, really pale. He just looked really, really sickly.
I mean, it could have been honestly alcoholism or syphilis. Like,
Yeah.
especially if he was kind of losing his mind towards the end, it might have just been syphilis.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah.
He didn't believe in rubbers, clearly.
They took him to the hospital because he obviously didn't look to be in great shape, and he was in and out of consciousness for like 5 days, and his last words was, "Lord, help my poor soul," and then he died.
Okay.
So there are a lot of theories as to like how he died, because nobody really knows. Political kidnapping. It was an election day, and back in the day, organized crime rings paid for by politicians would be hired to kidnap people, intoxicate them, and make them vote multiple times for the party. Like voter ID laws, like it was hard to catch like a lot of that stuff with like the lack of technology, or like not the same technology.
But that doesn't make sense, because like if you're gonna get somebody drunk and fucked up, they're also not gonna have the whereabouts to be like, let me go back to the polls, and then the poll workers are gonna realize like, yo, this guy's so drunk and belligerent.
I don't know. It was a practice that happened back then. I don't know. Okay. I don't know how they pulled it off, but apparently that was a common thing on election day. Rabies. People that have rabies, like they kind of get out of it. They get sweaty. They like have a slow, painful death, hallucinate. Obviously, the alcoholism is another like promising theory, because he was an alcoholic. Other people say brain tumor, because he was acting out of it, maybe. Some people say that he got just the shit kicked out of him because of his gambling debts, and like just that blunt force trauma to the head could also make someone pass away like that. Diabetes, maybe. People didn't really know about diabetes back then, and there was also no way to really take care of yourself if you had insulin issues. Heart disease gets a lot of us even nowadays, and sexually transmitted infections.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was too much of a mystery. Like, maybe we may not know the pinpoint, but it's not like a fucking altar boy died, you know? Yeah. It's like, pick your poison. Yeah. Mm-hmm. What was on his official autopsy? Do we know?
I don't know if there is one.
Okay.
To this day, it's still a mystery, so there probably isn't anything concrete on there.
My bet would be on alcoholism or STD, or both. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had even more tragedy post-death. So
his life is like a comedy more than a tragedy.
Yeah,
honestly.
Tragic comedy.
Because I don't know. Till this point, I don't feel bad for him. I don't think he went through anything so traumatic in his life that like would warrant that much angst. Like, it's 1800s, people are dying. Like, I'm so sorry your mom died and your dad abandoned you, but like that's like, I feel like in the 1800s a lot worse things were going on.
Yeah, you know, people experience traumas and process it differently. I don't know.
Okay. I sound so unsympathetic, but it's like, anyways.
His funeral only lasted 3 minutes. They're like, let's wrap it up.
What do you know about that?
The weather was really bad. It was like storming, and not a lot of people were there.
That's appropriate for Edgar Allan Poe.
So they were like, we don't really want to be out in the rain longer than we have to.
Yeah.
He was buried in a cheap box without a headstone or a nameplate, because originally a headstone of Italian white marble was supposed to be put there, but the people that were manufacturing it, a train derailed and just crushed the headstone.
Okay.
Yeah. So because
it was cursed then.
I know.
What it really was.
I think he was. So they just had a simple nameplate called number 80 on there because that happened. After he died, so
was he famous, or was he like a local celebrity? Like, people knew who he was?
In the United States, like on the East Coast, yes.
What would be like the equivalent now? Like, what because he wasn't like an A-list celebrity, right? He was like no fucking like Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
What would he have been? What would have been the equivalent?
I don't know. Pick a West Coast celebrity that not a lot of people know about.
Okay.
There's a band called Non-Binary Girlfriend that tours the West Coast and sometimes comes by Merced. A lot of people love them. I like some of their songs, but would you know about them? Maybe not. Yeah. But if I asked some other people in Merced, they probably would. So
okay,
maybe.
So people knew him, but he was definitely way more famous
after
post-mortem. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Right. In 1875, a school teacher named Sarah Rice started fundraising to give him a proper headstone and burial, because now finally, like, word was getting out about his influence and his works and stuff. Okay. And they fundraised enough money to give him like a proper headstone and burial and stuff. But when they were trying to dig him up, they couldn't find him. They struggled. They were like, where is he? But they finally found him.
Okay.
And then they were finally going to do a proper burial, and they wanted to bury him with his beloved Virginia. And Virginia, there was an enthusiast, like the earliest Poe biographer named William Gill, who just loved Edgar Allan Poe, and was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rob Virginia's grave.
Jeez.
So he had Virginia's bones under his bed. And when word got out, like, hey man, this is what we're trying to do, he gave Virginia's bones back. So they were eventually reunited on his 76th birthday on January 19th, 1885.
I don't know. This is a whole weird story. I can see
weird.
why it's like he has that lore of just like a lot of crazy shit. I still don't see the angst part of it. Yeah, it's just an interesting story. I'm glad we're doing the spotlight. I had no idea who Edgar Allan Poe was, other than he looked like that emo dude from the 1800s that possibly wore eyeliner. Like, that's it. So learning about him is so interesting. And yeah, I mean, life, literally a series of unfortunate events. So
I feel like your mind is really blown.
it really is. Yeah. Again, not who I expected. I kind of thought it was going to be more like he grew up in poverty, like his mom died, his siblings died, his parents died, his parrot died, like, and then he just like was basically, I pictured like industrial slum, and like he came out of that, but that's definitely not what it was remotely. Like,
no,
he actually lived a pretty good life.
Yeah.
I mean, all things considered, the post-mortem shit, like, once you're dead, to me, like, nothing matters. Like, you're not affected by it. So I'm not counting that. He had money-ish. He had at least some talent that could sustain him. Yes, his bride died, but she was also, like, a child bride. So it's like, I don't know. I find it hard to find sympathy for him.
Yeah. I don't know. When looking at people as a whole, like, yeah. I just feel like, yeah, he had his positive redeeming qualities, and then some not so redeeming. What were his
positive redeeming qualities, in your opinion?
The fact that he was so creative, and he was the first like successful-ish American author.
Okay. So his work,
his contributions to society.
I can give that, but
yeah,
the life. Yeah, you could take
his personal life, no. Yeah. His astrology is very interesting.
Okay, let's get into that.
So his birth chart has a C rating, which means that we don't really know. There's a process called rectification where astrologers can try to piece together when someone's rising sign is, but it's more like an educated guess through like a lot of math. I hope to be able to do that one day, because you have to take like a pretty intense course, and it's a whole process. But astrologers ultimately came together, and we're speculating that he is a Scorpio rising. Okay. But we know for sure that he's a Capricorn sun and a Pisces moon.
Okay.
Yeah. His sun and Mercury are conjunct, meaning that they're very close together in Capricorn. So it makes sense that his passion and his career were both literary, because the sun is sort of like your ego, your joy, your essence, and then Mercury is about communication in Capricorn, which is a hardworking, industrious sign.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. He has a Pisces stellium. So a stellium is when you have 3 or more planets in the same sign within 10 degrees of each other. He had 4 planets in Pisces within 10 degrees of each other. He had Venus, the moon, Pluto, and Jupiter.
So what does that mean for him as a person?
Yeah. So with the moon and Venus were conjunct to the degree, which made him a romantic, because the moon is emotions, and then Venus is...
And motherly, right?
And motherly. Oh, look at you remembering. Yeah. Yes. And then Venus is... romantic, artistic, glamorous. So yes, it made him this like romantic that loved women and like maternal figures, but also someone that could not be tamed or bound to a specific way of working. Like if he could, he would just like vibe his way through life. So he wasn't a very disciplined person.
Yeah.
And that probably has something to do with it.
Definitely a dreamer more than a doer.
Exactly. And then he also had Pluto and Jupiter in close proximity, which we can call a conjunction, which makes him an all or nothing visionary, because Jupiter is the the planet of abundance, and then Scorpio is the planet of rebirth. So he was just very sort of like reckless and like go big or go home with his literary career, which could also possibly add to his vices and addictions and things like that.
So far, like, his astrology really tracks with who he was, right? This is with Wattpad, we had the 2 different birth dates, so that made it a little difficult. With the Millennial Saint, even that one, I think we were like making very I don't say weak through lines, but a little weaker through lines. But this guy does seem like his astrology is a recipe for who he was.
Yeah. It's
like eerily
interesting.
Yeah.
It's very eerie. And then he finally had a Mars in Libra, which Mars is not happy in Libra, aka called in its detriment. So difficult time like successfully executing things.
Which I mean, he didn't even make it. So okay. Edgar Allan Poe, really interesting character. I'm glad we did him because I think he definitely aligns with like the vision of kind of what we do as far as like that occultness, but. Final verdict for me, I'm not a fan. I don't see. I gotta read his works, which I guess is my next and final question. Like, if I were to read any of his literary works, which one do you recommend?
Probably The Raven or The Mask of the Red Death.
Okay.
Or his Murder in the Rue Morgue.
I'll probably read The Raven because that's one of his more prolific ones. And then maybe I'll make a post in our Patreon to let you know, like, if I've switched. But as far as his, like, life, not my favorite person.
I will personally be separating the art from the artist and appreciate him for the things that he brought to society and the literary community.
Awesome. Well, it was a great episode. I'm really happy to cover these prolific figures. We have a few more in the works for the rest of the year. But if there's anybody you want us to cover, just let us know and we'll do our best to cover them. Awesome. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much. Go read some Edgar Allan Poe and let us know what you think about him in the comments.
Yes, remember to get in touch with us. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Blue Sky at Gencalo and gencalo.com. And rate the show 5 stars wherever you're listening if you enjoyed today's episode.
Bye.
Remember, the magic within you makes the world a more beautiful place. Blessed be, and signing off. Bye.